But let's talk about the most impressive company in AI. That is Nvidia. I mentioned we're not going to get earnings from them until late February. So that's a lot of time. The narrative shifts so much with Nvidia. A couple weeks ago, it was like, oh, Nvidia's already in a correction. It's down 10%. Is maybe Broadcom eating their lunch? And now it's, we're right back almost to $150 a share, a price that it can't quite get past that too far. I wanted to hear kind of what's the latest news from Nvidia, and kind of what are you watching in this time between now and earnings from the company?
Yeah, so Nvidia, they are absolutely relentless. And it's one thing to be a company that any company that's as big as Nvidia is needs to get lucky, right? When Nvidia was founded, its leader, Jensen Huang, he was never thinking about this level of GPUs, right? There's some luck, but there's also, again, some tenaciousness. And we've talked a lot about Nvidia's moving towards Blackwell, which, people think of it as a chip. It's really a system approach to, be able to kind of protect Nvidia's competitive advantage, but also continue driving the, you'd call it total cost, TOC, down for, these AI applications. So the scale out right now has been GB200, which is the first systems that they're shipping. They got a little bit of revenue contribution from it in their last quarter, but supposed to begin scaling this quarter. Now, generally, you'd see a much slower cadence between, a next major launch. You might have some kind of secondary launch next year, what you'd call a GB200 Ultra, something like that. And then you'd have a new architecture the year after. NVIDIA is trying to accelerate everything as much as possible. They're doing something that's almost never been tried before in semiconductors. And what they're launching is an update to GB200, and it's going to be called GB300, and it's supposed to be ramping already in the third quarter. Now, what's particularly interesting about this is there's been some kind of analysis on it from SemiAnalysis, which is probably the best researcher in this space around semiconductor matters. And it was glowing in how effective this is. So if we're looking at it, it's an upgrade that specifically is much better for these reasoning models that we've been talking about. They believe that its economics per token using NVL72, which is part of this system, is 10 times better on these reasoning chains. So what's going on here is there's something called chain of thought. How this reasoning works is effectively you have a problem and the AI model uses chain of thought, so it's able to think. And as it's thinking, one of the big complaints about AI is it spits out nonsensical answers. And what it's able to do is if you're in a field that's verifiable, like coding or math, it's able to, if it gets to a wrong answer or a dead end, it's able to go back and retrace its steps. And this is partially what makes this reasoning so much more effective. Also, it's creating new training data because you're able to get training data. So you're able to solve this problem that we've talked about before of having less data available. Now, the problem with this chain of thought structure, it has incredible memory demands. So what NVIDIA is doing is they're going to launch this new system that is really a lot stronger on the memory side, which is one of NVIDIA's greatest weaknesses against AMD and also against Broadcom, frankly. So again, it's hard to really capture how aggressive it is going for another launch this quickly. But what SemiAnalysis believes is that all of the hyperscalers are now going big into this GB300 upgrade. It's released at just the right moment where it's optimized for these reasoning models, right as we're getting this new O3 results. And this is probably going to lead to a lot of momentum for NVIDIA, specifically in the back half of the year, not just for their chips, but also for their networking revenue. So David, we've seen NVIDIA shares up 5% today. I think they were up 3% yesterday. And I'm sure there's going to be a lot of speculation about why the cause of that is. I think the key reason is that there's probably a lot of research notes coming out from Wall Street, extremely impressed how aggressive Nvidia is. You know, they've got this lead and everyone's saying, are they really going to be able to protect this lead? They are doing everything in their power to a degree that you've never even seen before from a large semiconductor company to be able to keep this pace up. So if you're someone who owns Nvidia, what they're doing right now to cement their lead across, again, a new kind of paradigm, a new scaling law coming up, you couldn't ask for anything more. It is extremely impressive. And again, I think it's what's led to the recent gains for Nvidia and speaks very well for them to deliver once again in 2025 after, let's call it what it is, beyond belief 2023 and 2024, right?
So we obviously own Nvidia in the AI portfolio. I think I'm not sure what our blended kind of cost basis is, lower than what it is today. So if someone's sitting there, again, I mentioned earnings coming in a couple months. This is a company that has had an enormous run, and it hasn't had a lot of these like air pockets down on earnings where it's like, usually you see these large companies that have explosive growth. You might have earnings where it's like, oh, it's off 18%. It's not unusual. Nvidia has not had that. So if someone has been sitting watching Nvidia, is this still a price that's reasonable? I know we've talked a lot about looking forward to the 26 earnings. What would the PE multiple look like there? What's kind of your just general feeling? I'm assuming you're still confident kind of holding the stock right now, but do you have any different opinion on if someone's kind of, I've been thinking about it and I just haven't gotten in yet?
Yeah, I mean, I think if you didn't own Nvidia, I think you should be able to relatively confidently add to them right now because, a lot of the concerns have been how the competition from specifically Broadcom, but Broadcom is designing custom processors at the behest of these large hyperscalers, giving them optionality beyond Nvidia. Nvidia just kind of stepped in and said, we have something so impressive, you cannot afford to not buy this. And all of them have apparently said, yes, you are right. And we're going to see a relatively large cycle in the back half of the year. So, I mean, this probably begins pushing the cycle into 2026, which was our unknown zone. Mm-hmm. And again, reinforces the long-term strategy that NVIDIA has been pursuing around the systems approach, because it certainly looks like a lot of the networking technologies that they've built for these Blackwell systems are part of getting latency down in memory and part of being able to provide a superior system. And again, it just starts beginning emphasizing things that other competitors can't really copy easily. AMD can't copy this. The closest thing that can try that has, the complete offerings between networking and chips is Broadcom. But again, I think this really probably blunts some near-term momentum from Broadcom in a way that I think the hyperscalers are really going to be focusing in the back half of this year and trying to get as many NVIDIA systems as they can, because this is an outrageously competitive offering. So I think how you felt about, if you were a 6 feeling about NVIDIA a couple of weeks ago, the developments around these reasoning models, a lot of headlines might say it's inferencing where they're weaker. NVIDIA's kind of taken some perceived weakness and they've kind of judo flipped it. It would appear they're definitely getting ahead of this very well. If you were a 6 on a confidence scale, I would feel like the past 2 weeks have to take you up to an 8. It's a trend that might be unlike anything we've ever seen before, and it's a company operating at a level we've potentially never seen before.